Well, I know that there's probably a lot of people right now and then in the grand scheme of things that feel like they can't afford to travel. I know I've had people say to me, like, how do you afford to take so many trips? And of course, being a travel writer now, they don't ask that as much. But when we first started traveling all the time, they would ask that all the time. So what do you think are some top budgeting tips that you would give for people who, want to travel, but don't see how they could financially do it?
Yes. So I know that budgeting is a bad word for a lot of people. It's the B word that everyone tries to avoid. But I definitely see budgeting as empowering because who sets your budget? You do, right? Like, of course, we all have limitations based off of our income, but we have the ability to dictate how our money is moved around and where it gets allocated to. So number one, seeing your budget as a tool that you're going to use to really determine what your future is going to look like. Another thing I want to say is that when it comes to budgeting, I really like to sit down, I would say on a quarterly basis, especially after and during the pandemic. Like right now, it's a good time to reassess and to do a wants versus needs list. So out of all of your expenses for the month, what are the things you absolutely need to survive versus the things that are nice to have? And the easiest place, if you're looking to save more for travel, is to reduce from the wants list. So things that maybe nice, maybe not. Maybe you have Hulu, Netflix, and HBO. Maybe you don't need all three, right? Maybe you just need one of them. So that needs versus wants list is really, really powerful, and it can help you to remove some unnecessary expenses. Like for me, I've been doing a lot of jumping rope at home, which has significantly reduced my gym costs. But I was paying for my gym for like the last 6 months because I just kept it on autopilot, right? So This is the time to go through what are you spending your money on and what are things that, okay, I no longer need. Maybe that was my old life and now I can move on and make sure you capture that and put it towards your travel savings. So my third tip is to create a travel fund. So a travel fund is simply a separate bank account that's devoted solely to your travel savings. There's a number of reasons why you want to do this. It's because number one, at a glance, you can see undistracted how much money you have available to go on a trip. That is very empowering. Also, you're not commingling with other funds. So just being able to see it separately is really helpful. There are a lot of online banks right now. For example, like if you're in the US, Ally or Charles Schwab. I actually have a blog post on my website that recommends about 3 different bank accounts that you can open, bankers, where you could open up a bank account for no money, little to no money. Compared to brick and mortars, a lot of them have like maintenance fees and minimums and it has all these ands, right? Restrictions. So
yeah, I was just chiming in again. One of those tips of those online, don't they also a lot of times the ATM cards work well, like overseas and things, there's not fees on those as well.
Exactly.
Like SoFi. Yeah. So that's another like travel perk. If you have your travel fund in one of those, then it also works for helping you get cash if you're overseas. Exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to add that as another little thing. When you
that's great. That's really, really great. And also realistically speaking, like you're not necessarily going to be needing to run over to your brick and mortar to take out money on a consistent basis when it comes to your travel fund. It's usually going to be maybe a couple of times a year. So an online bank is just a great way to have some buffers and a little bit of a boundary and a space from just being able to go to your brick and mortar and take money out like willy-nilly whenever you need to. So I definitely think a travel fund is just a great budgeting tip. And last but not least is to really take a look at your top 3 expenses. So for a lot of people, that's shelter, like your housing costs, which is primarily fixed. Like if you can't house hack or anything like that, like your housing is fixed. Transportation is another category that I've seen that I've significantly reduced since the pandemic because I'm not commuting as much. I'm not really driving that much. So that has been a place where I can funnel money into my travel fund and other goals. And food is a huge category, especially if you're like using Instacart, which I've become addicted to recently.
We were just talking about that recently.
Very expensive, but super convenient. So those are my budgeting tips. That's to get you started, really prioritizing, figuring out the things that you need versus the things that you want, and trying to funnel as much money as you can towards your travel savings.